I just found a crushed, new old stock copy of one of my favorite games on eBay. So in today's video we are going to unbox it and build a matching period correct Pentium MMX tower. The eBayer who sold me the game was very clear about the fact that this box was crushed. But the guy who sold me this tower forgot to mention that it was trash picked. This tower just screams Pentium MMX 1995. The brand seems to be Artist, or perhaps the model number, but it also has this P133 PCI badge, so it might be some kind of OEM case. I'm not sure, I've never seen one of these before, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to buy it. The camera overexposes beige cases, but this thing is pretty grimy, but I think it's worth some scrubbing. I can't say for sure if this badge has been added or if it's original to the case, but it does look like it belongs here, so most likely some short-lived OEM case. One rather unusual thing is that it has two 5¼ inch bays, but three 3½ inch bays. I don't think I've ever seen that in a case before. This case is so grimy I couldn't really tell what the condition is until we have scrubbed it in warm soapy water, but let's hope for the best. Sometimes even a nasty case like this turns out nice. At the back it has a really nice plastic cover. This is not a very common sight. This is more what most cases look like from the back, so that's a nice touch. Okay, let's get that cover off and see how bad this case is inside. Ew! That is pretty disgusting for sure. This will probably clean up. Now let's get that front panel off and take a look inside. This panel definitely needs some retro brights, but I'll fix it off camera. Ew! Yeah, this case is definitely trash picked. This is not just your normal dust you would find in old cases. Check out these dust bunnies. Absolutely disgusting. The camera makes everything much brighter, so it doesn't look as bad on camera. Let's go for a complete disassembly before the wash. The drive bay here looks like it's removable, so I'll remove these two screws first. This drive bay looks like it's removable separately, but let's go for the entire assembly. Pretty nifty case. Disgusting, but really nifty. Yeah, this stuff here looks like it's mold. Yuck. But that should come off with warm soapy water. I should probably wear gloves for this. More dust bunnies and more grime inside here. But the cable management is really tidy in this case. So definitely not a cheap and cheerful case. And all of this has to come out for the wash. The back here looks a bit unusual. It looks like it's removable. Let's get these screws out and see what comes loose. Well, OEM or not, it definitely looks like a standard AT case. But there is also an insert here that looks like it could be for ATX. The bracket for the cards and the blanks seems to be a loose part. So let's remove these guys next. Now this bracket came off. Yeah, the whole back looks kind of loose. I think I figured it out. Check this out. The whole back plane comes out together with the back. So you can install the motherboard and all the cards and then push the system inside the case afterwards. That's pretty nifty. I'm pretty sure this piece is removable too. Question is how to get it off. Ah, here we go. Okay, interesting. So this is actually an ATX case. With this panel installed, it becomes an AT case. Now the last part to come off is the stand. Okay, that was the full disassembly. I'll wash and retrobrite everything off camera. And while I wait for the sun to do its thing, I'll go through my stash and pick some cool MMX stuff. And this is what I picked. This is a baby 80 PC chip socket 7. I found the page for it on the RetroWeb. So this board has 512K of cache, 4 PCI slots and 3 ISA slots. It has 4 72-pin SIM slots and pin headers for USB, parallel and serial ports. The chipset is VX Pro Plus branded, but this is actually a VIA chipset. It's the VT82C580VPX, and it has 2 onboard ID channels and a word BIOS. The only known issue with this board is bad electrolytics. So I had a look at these, but they look pretty decent. I'm going to leave them in for now, but I'll keep an eye on these, and if needed, I will replace them in the future. The fastest desktop Pentium MMX was the 233 MHz. There were some faster chips, but they were for laptops only. So we're gonna have to overclock this guy, so we can run it at a slightly faster speed. Pins weren't great on this chip, so I had to wiggle it quite a bit to make it fit. But as long as it works, we should be okay. I have set JP6 here to 2.8 volts and JP9 to dual voltages. I have set JP2 for regular 72-pin SIMs. This board can take 256 megs of RAM, but we're not going to go quite that silly. But I will add a decent chunk of RAM because we're going to run Windows 98 on this machine. I have set JP3 here for 75 MHz instead of the intended 66. So that is going to be our overclocking. I have set the PCI clock to 33 MHz. And the clock multiplier has been set to 3.5x with JP5 here. And hopefully our chip here can do 266 MHz. Since I got so many friendly comments in the previous video when I added heat pastes, I'll do this perfectly this time. And not do anything silly. I also found this rather nice blue heatsink in my stash. But the fan was so disgusting, I had to wash it. So we're gonna have to install it later. I also found these 2 32 meg SIMs with EDO RAM. Then I found 2 more similar SIMs. Not sure what these are, but let's add them and find out later. For graphics, we're gonna go Voodoo. I mean, of course we are. What else? Since this board doesn't have AGP, the Voodoo 3 is kind of the perfect card. Performance-wise, it's very similar to having 2 Voodoo 2 cards in SLI. So this machine is going to be pretty damn sweet for some 90s gaming. The only known issue with these cards is the cooling. They are known to run really hot with a rather small heatsink and passive cooling. The card actually has a couple of holes here, but unfortunately they don't line up with a regular GPU cooler. Well, I looked through my stuff here, and apparently those holes, they line up with the CPU fan. I grabbed some plastic standoffs in my standoff kit, and these guys are about the same height as the heatsink on the card. But the screws are a bit too long, and since they are plastic, we can just snip them off and install the standoffs on the fan. It's a tight fit, but I think this is going to work. Yeah, it's almost like they're made for it. And now we can install the fan on top of that heatsink. Yeah, this is going to be perfect. I love it when things are this simple. For sound, I found this oddball in my stash. Before we continue, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, PCB. Aside from making excellent PCBs, as we have seen in many of my videos, they also do CNC machining, 3D printing and injection molding. Perfect for prototyping and vintage computer restorations like this one. This is just a few of the projects we have built on this channel, and there are many more to come. Get an instant quote now for your next projects at PCBWay.com. Thank you PCBWay for supporting this channel. This is a CT3670. It's a Sound Blaster 32. It's a pretty strange card. It's basically an AWE 64 with SIM memory slots. And it's actually a pretty excellent card. This card has been sitting on my shelf for ages. So it's about time it gets installed in the machine. And I can't think of a better project for this card than an MMX Dream Machine. I just realized we better check the clearance. Yeah, that's perfect. There's roughly 1 millimeter between the fan and the PCI slot. So that is perfect. Well, it takes up a second slot, but that doesn't matter. Who needs 4 PCI slots in an MMX machine? And we better install brand new Varda. The front panel is still in peroxide, but let's install as much as we can while we wait. The standoffs actually line up with this baby AT, so that seems to be what this case had in its previous life. I'm going to use a serial mouse with this machine, so we need to add a serial port at the back. I like to keep things tidy, so let's do some cable management. I ended up installing a parallel port and a second serial port. I'm never going to use them, but it looks better than 2 large holes. Probably have some blanks somewhere, but let's spend the time with something more interesting than looking for blanks. That's pretty neat, and should be pretty good for airflow too. Before we can install the cards, we need to install this bracket, and hopefully we can still slide the back plane in and out of the machine with this bracket installed. Well, I have seen removable backplanes before, but this type is a first for me. So we need a blank in that first slot, and the second slot is going to be for the Voodoo card. By the way, there is no speed difference between Voodoo 3 AGP and PCI, so there is nothing to gain from using the AGP version. I have ordered a PCI card with USB 2 for this project, but it hasn't arrived yet. So for now we're gonna have to go period correct, because we have USB 1 pin headers on the motherboard. And I found one of these in my stash. This bracket has 4 USB ports, but I only have 1 pin header. So this is just gonna have to do for now. And I'm going to install it between the 2 cards. Now I only need to remember that 2 of the ports are not connected. 1 more blank. And then the sound blaster in the last slot. For storage, I'm going to cheat today and use this compact flash adapter, because I just picked this up on AliExpress and I want to check how compatible it is. The label on this card has clearly been added on top of the old label, so this card could be pretty much any brand. For power, I'm going to use this Minty 230 watt 17. This is the good stuff. I've been inside many of these and never had an issue, so I'm not even going to check inside. I'm just going to assume it's good. And besides, this damn thing looks brand new. And it has a sticker here, installed fan sensor, so it should be pretty nice and quiet too. The chassis cleaned up really nicely, but some of the screws were a bit rusty, so I'm gonna guess it has been sitting outside for a while, probably at a recycler. Well, the fan I found has been cleaned and dry now, but I'm not sure about this choice. That fan is absolutely tiny. So is this really going to be enough to cool that overclocked MMX? I'll keep looking and I'll see if I can find something better. Actually, it doesn't fit on this heatsink, so we can't use it even briefly. Oh crap. Well, I found a solution, but not a great one. I found what I think is the original heatsink for this fan, but I don't like the look of that tiny little fan, so I'll keep looking for a more permanent solution, but this is gonna have to do for now. But I had much better luck with the CD-ROM drive. I found this quad-speed Mitsumi manufactured in December of 1995, so that's a perfect match. The drive is untested, but it's really nice and clean, so it probably works when using a single drive. I prefer to install it in the first bay, so I'm going to break this shield off. Well, I'm glad only the screws are rusty. The chassis is in a really great condition, and the front panel is almost ready in retro bright. And now to the rather unusual part, sliding the complete assembly of the motherboard into the chassis. Very service friendly and nifty case for sure. Okay, everything has been installed and it's a bloody mess, but I like to do the cable management after all the tests. And the front panel is back from retro bright and all the nasty yellowness is gone. This panel looks great now. The badge at the front panel definitely looks custom. So this is not a standard badge. So that basically means this was probably an OEM machine. And this front panel is custom made for this machine. That also means artist is either a brand or the model number of this machine. Damn, that looks good. Well, I don't know about you guys, but to me this mix of round and square shapes and that fake grill just screams the 90s. This is 90s perfection to me. Well, I didn't think to retrobrite the stand, and compared to the front panel it now looks extremely yellow, but I'm gonna have to fix it later. Okay, time for a test. Here goes. And apparently I spoke too soon about that 17 power supply. I'm just hearing a very faint ticking noise. And nothing is powering up. Oh crap. And this is why I always do the cable management last. I actually think this power supply is a rebranded 17 too. But at least it's tested. So here goes. Test number 2. We're getting nothing. Okay, so it's not the power supply. Okay, I removed 2 RAM sticks. And when I did, I noticed that one of them wasn't properly seated. So here goes again. Nope, still nothing. Let's remove one more. Nope. I'm not sure how this board behaves without RAM. But let's remove the last stick too. Nope, still nothing. Okay, I connected the CPU fan. Okay, the fan did a slight movement. That's all it did. So it kind of behaves like we have a short. Okay, let's try without those USB connectors. There it goes. Oh, it was this damn thing here. It must be shorted inside. When I installed it, I made sure it was correctly installed by checking pin 1. So I guess this damn thing is shorted. Or maybe it's just incompatible. Okay, so the board is alive. I'll put the RAM back in and reconnect the power supply. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, the fan spun up and the machine posts. And it's running at 266 megahertz instead of the intended 233. Okay, let's jump into BIOS and have a look. Let's go to hard drive detection. Okay, it found something. Then I'll save and exit. I noticed that the LED on the diskette drive was lit up. So I flipped the cable. Let's turn the machine on with the DOS diskette installed. Okay, it didn't boot. So I'm back in BIOS. And in here it's set to 1.44 meg drive. So how about boot sequence? CA and SCSI. Let's change this to AC and SCSI. Exit and save. Now it's reading from the diskette. Non-system disk. Oh crap. Let me find another diskette. Okay, and now it boots. Windows Millennium to the rescue. So let's jump into F-disk and create a primary partition. Now that was pretty quick. So let's reboot. Okay, and apparently this diskette just died too. Oh crap. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, this one is good. So let's format that drive. Invalid drive specification. That's weird behavior. So let's check in F-disk. Okay, apparently we have a non-DOS partition, so something went wrong. So let's delete non-DOS partition with option 4 and reboot. So not looking too good. Well, compact flash card so far. Now we can jump back into F-disk and create a primary partition and reboot again. Now we can format the compact flash card, but only 2 gigs. Okay, so the compact flash card is working, but it's a bit of a shame to waste 2 gigs. So I'll repartition the card off camera before we continue with the working Windows Millennium diskette. And apparently some more drama here. Now the machine doesn't post anymore. It just stopped working. I swapped around some RAM sticks. But it's not caused by the RAM. Oh crap. And unfortunately some bad news. I swapped the CPU, the graphics card and the RAM. And it still won't post. So that must mean it's the motherboard. And your guess is probably as correct as mine. It's probably those stupid caps. Well, lesson learned. Always replace the stupid caps. Unfortunately, I don't have a set for this board. So I'm gonna have to place an order and repair this board in another video. Well, we still have a game to unbox. So let's do a plan B. While I wait for those caps, I'm going to install this board instead. This is a PT 2006. It won't run as fast as the other board, but it will just have to do for now. I'll do a quick test. If it works, I'll install it in the machine. Oh crap, this board is dead too. I'm having a bad day here. Well, I guess I'll order caps for this board too. See if I can find another board. Okay, so how about this guy? This is an Asus P1 P55 SP3AV. This is a somewhat interesting board because it came with its own VGA and sound module. I haven't checked what kind of VGA it has, but it definitely has an ESS audio chip on the motherboard. And that is actually a pretty good chip. So let's give this guy a try. Okay, this board is working, and apparently it has a Pentium 120 MHz installed. Okay, everything installed. I'm not going to bother with the cable management, since we're going to swap that board again in a couple of weeks. I just realized I had installed the stand backwards, but that has been fixed now. Well, at least the case turned out really nice. And while I wait for those caps, I'll retrobrite the stand too, to make it match the rest of the case. Okay, finally time for some unboxing. So I actually bought a game from this seller just a couple of weeks ago. My all-time favorite game, Broken Sword. This box only has some minor damage. It's a bit wrinkly. It has been slightly crushed at the back here. But it was new old stock, so we unwrapped it in another video. And I'm super happy with this copy. And the same thing with this. The seller was very clear in the pictures what state this box was in. But it is new old stock, and the price was really good. Yeah, it's really badly crushed at the back here too. I didn't buy my original copy when this game was brand new, but my box was just plain black. So I'm not sure which copy was the first release. Wow, this box is really rough. Holy cow. I didn't bother fixing the other box, but this one definitely needs to be ironed out. So this is a really cool point-and-click game from 1994, and at least according to me, it has aged really well, so it's still fun to play. It's made by the same guys who made Broken Sword. Well, I guess the text here says it all. Paranoid population, psychotic criminals, power-hungry corporations, big brother governments, haves and have-nots. It was a futuristic game, but luckily the future didn't turn out this way. Over 100 locations, designed and art directed by award-winning comic book author Dave Gibbons. Okay, so let's get inside this box. Actually, I'm not sure how to get inside this box. It seems to have a sleeve. And it's a bit stuck to the box. And then probably a regular box underneath. But since it's so crushed, it's a bit stuck. So I'm gonna have to be a bit careful so I don't break it. I think I'm gonna have to use some tools here, so I don't rip that sleeve. Yeah, not so easy. But I don't want to damage the box more than it already is. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it has some water damage too, unfortunately. That's too bad. Oh, and the lid is stuck to the box. So unfortunately, this box has been soaked in water. I'm gonna have to cut this apart. That sucks. I'm gonna have to do this off camera so I don't damage it more than necessary. Well, that was a pretty horrible experience. Being a fanboy and all, the two halves were just completely glued shut. And unfortunately, this box has been completely soaked in water. So here's the manual. And this damn thing has turned into a piece of cardboard. Well, at least the CD looks okay. The broken sword box is in a pretty nice condition. But you may want to skip these boxes. And water has been inside the CD too. But at least it was cheap. So I probably paid what one of these CDs would cost without the box. So I'm not going to complain. But it was kind of a painful experience, since I really love this game. Well, that's life. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Well, I guess I could iron the box out. And maybe I can make it look good enough to keep on display. Oh no, even the CD is damaged. There's this weird spot here. And it's not coming off with IPA. Oh crap. Well, let's give it a try anyways. See if we're lucky. Okay, so the CD-ROM drive works too. That's awesome. Fingers crossed. Well, at least the game starts. But we don't have sound. So maybe that custom ESS card needs some drivers. Yeah, definitely no sound. Well, I'm not sure I should bother fixing it, since we're going to swap the motherboard anyways in a couple of weeks. A pretty rough week here in the studio. But I guess sometimes things just don't go as planned. And all we can do is to order caps and try again. But that's all I have for today. And I'll see you guys again next week.